Okay, in this video we're going to show you some real quick things with the HMI display. Not really into parameters and setting up colors. My graphic design skills aren't really great. Some people's are. But what we're going to show you is companies like to sometimes have their logo show up on devices. It powers up and it goes away. And that's what we're going to do. I think some people call that a splash screen. So we're going to show you that because it introduces timers and concept of how they're used. And while we're on the HMI screen topics, we'll take a look at alignment of different objects and things that I've learned as I went along. So let's start with the splash screen first. So what I want to do is show this logo that comes up for 3 seconds or so on power up and have it go away. The only time you would see it is on power up. And I thought it was pretty cool, and let's get started on that. We've already opened a new project. We aren't doing any external I/O, so I didn't show you any of that setup to save time. Also note over here on the left-hand side, we have the main routine and the startup display. The two have an exclamation point in front of them, and that means that they are the startup when power comes up. The main routine is what runs right away, and the startup display is the HMI screen that's loaded. You have to have a startup display. You can't load anything else, but you can jump off from there after you start. The other thing that you can do with the startup display is alter the name. I like to leave the exclamation points there so it's apparent that's the one that started up, but we're going to call this sorry about that. We're going to call this a splash screen. So I'm going to rename it, but leave the asterisk in there. And splash screen. So we still know that's going to come up on power up. Main routine, the code, we're just going to leave that the way it is because that's what we want to run. We are going to start in the code. So if I go into the main routine, what I need to do is have something trigger when the device powers on. And a very common bit to use is a system bit. So I'm going to drop this contact instruction in here, go for a system bit, and I think I remember it's bit 2, which is the power up bit. And that's exactly what I want. And I want to keep that status. I want to latch it. I want to hold on to it. I want to use it to trigger a timer. So I'm going to have that bit set a bit that I use in my program. So I'm going to use the first available memory bit, and I'm going to call that power on state. And that's going to capture and turn on when the power turns on. And I'm going to use that bit to make this splash screen appear for 3 seconds. Very quick introduction for people that didn't do PLCs before. The name of the game in this PLC is to get through this scan cycle as fast as it possibly can. And if you have a bunch of switches and indicators and lights, it's each scan cycle, it's looking at those things hundreds of times before they could change, so that it catches all the status that it wants to, determine whether you hit a switch and things like that. You don't use a timer to delay the scan or the program like you do in a lot of other programming languages. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use a delay to trigger an event, and that event is the splash screen time is up. We're going to take it off the screen and move to another screen. So one thing we have to do is create a second screen. So I go back over here to the left, I right click on here, I'm going to right click on HMI, and I'm going to, I don't want to add a new module, right? I want to add a new screen. So I right click on the right thing here and say add new display, and I'm going to call that new display main. Notice splash screen still has that exclamation point in front. Means that one loads up. Main just sort of sits here until I tell it to load. You won't see it. Or if I give it a switching code to hit. So back to the main routine. I have this other window available, but I want to get the splash screen set up and have it display for 3 seconds. So I already know that I have a bit telling me or latching on when the power goes on. So I'm going to use that same bit. And I'm going to trigger a timer. And we're going to do this for 3 seconds, have the splash screen set up. So a timer is nothing more than an output coil set up for a data type of timer. I'm going to use the next available timer, and I'm going to call it splash screen. And in this case, maybe not the best idea in the world, but I'm going to call it 3 seconds. And I have to set that timer for power up to that specific value, or I won't have any 3 seconds. So that's what this check mark here for power up and 3 seconds does. And I click OK, and I got that done. Now, the last thing that I have to do in code is after that 3 seconds is up, get that splash screen off the screen and display what I want to do. And that's going to be the main display. Okay, so there's all kinds of bits that you can associate with that timer. And that's exactly what we're going to do. If you forget which one it was, you already named it. I hit OK. And that means after this 3 seconds expires, this is going to happen. And what I'm going to do is load up an HMI display. So I come over here, I start to look. Here's a command called load HMI display. When I drop that on my screen, it says which display do you want to load, and we want to go out of the splash screen and change to main after that 3 seconds has occurred. Now, the way the PLC scans, it's going to do that over and over and over again. And I only need to load the main screen once, so I'm going to change this instruction to only happen on the positive transition. So it's going to happen one time. When the timer expires, it's going to happen one time. It's going to load the main up. And probably some good housekeeping is to reset that power on state. So we're going to drag that right on here. And we know that that's 0. And that's going to reset. After that 3 seconds goes, that's going to reset. And all this is only going to happen once. So it's probably good to add some comments on here. So we're going to say display a splash screen logo each time the PLC powers on. And we'll get the capitalization right. Right down here, we know that we're going to display it. Down here, it's going to say I'm going to do that for 3 seconds, and then after that expires, we're going to show the main screen. Okay, resetting this bit, just it's a good habit. It's a good thing to do. So we wrote our code. Seems to me like it would work. We created our splash screen. We created our main screen. Let's load it up and see what happens. But we still really, the splash screen, we really didn't put anything there yet. So we don't want to just display this blue screen. And there's a lot of cool properties that you can change on these screens. So if I go up here and hit properties, this is the screen I'm on. The other way I can do that is right click on here, or double click on here, and the splash screen comes up. And you can do all kinds of things like change the background color. That's crazy color, but you can do those things. And you can do all kinds of other things on here. What I'm interested in is being able to display a picture. So you see this background picture. I don't like the interface because it doesn't look like you can change it, but if I click in here, let me go back. If I click in here, that brings up this box, and if I click on this box, that lets me pick a logo. So I like the Stevens Bulldog logo. It'll take all kinds of different formats. I don't know what they are off the top of my hand, but most picture formats it'll be there. And I click on that logo and notice it resizes it, puts it on the whole screen. Might not get the best resolution in the world. If you want to check out what the resolution of your screen is and match that to the picture, or get a picture that resizes without getting ugly and pixelated. So I have my splash screen set up, and once again you can do that by properties and going in here, or you can go on the screen itself and double click and properties come up. Okay, so there's really no code to that part of it, and that's what happens. So we got all that set up. That's download. It's going to take some time. It's got a picture in there, and every time you have to download a bunch of pictures, even if they're just, you know, switch pictures or turning on and off. Takes a little bit more time to do that. I might have downloaded this logo before, or this picture before, so it might not take as long. So we're going to download that, and we're going to have to jump in very quickly to see how this works on the screen, because it's only going to be up there for 3 seconds, and I want to show you that remote screen. Hopefully we'll be able to be quick enough to see that. Okay, still waiting for that download. Like I said, it takes a little bit of time the more pictures you send to the PLC. If you never did HMI screens before, it seems like this PLC is awful slow. It's not necessarily the case. Okay, we're going to switch to run. We're going to go to this window, and we're going to go to the remote window really quickly. And I don't know that we got there fast enough. But anyway, that splash screen did come up for 3 seconds. So that's how that works. The program's pretty simple. It's extra code that you would have to add in there for a nice little touch. So a lot of companies may not do that. Let's go back to main screen 1. Let's go off of the thing here and finish up the one last thing I want to show you. I'm not going to work with this. I'm going to make the screen as big as I can. And when I'm lining stuff up, it took me a while to learn how things go. So let's put some text on the screen, and let's just, for example, say that we're going to take temperature, right, and don't like that color text. You heard me say that before, so I like this color down here. And also 3D pressed when I'm just putting text on the screen. Transparent seems to work well. And finally, I got to stretch that out enough so it's there. So we're going to say I have 3 values: temperature, pressure, and humidity, to take a look at on the screen. So I got this one set up. I like how it goes. We do know that if we have this selected, we do a Control-C and a Control-V. That makes a copy of it for us. And if I do a Control-V again, another copy comes out, and it ends up that I get these things, rather than going in and remembering all the things I needed to change to make them the same, I got them already. So we said temperature, pressure, right? Oh, we don't want 2 different lines there, so let me backspace, pressure, and finally humidity. And this is just text we want to display on the screen. There's other options, but we don't want to change it once we get it on there. Now, if I wanted to line those things up real nice and neat, that gets to be a little bit of a pain. You can put up a grid, but it doesn't snap the grid. So what I thought I'd do is explain the two different ways that I found, then you can choose one that's there. What I usually do is line one of these up real nice and neat where I want it in about the right place. I select that, I hold the control key down, and I start to select multiple things at a time. That's Windows-like, right? And if I hit control again on one of them, it one selected so you can fix any mistakes that you want. The other thing is you'll notice that these blocks are blue and these are white. This is the last one selected, and if I go to line things up, it's going to be based on this one. So if I line these up on the top, it's going to line up these two equal to the top of this. If I wanted to do it with humidity, I'd just click over here, and I wanted that to be the baseline for the, or I can change it to here. So I'm going to click back on pressure. All these things showed up here. I have a tendency to do right click and do stuff because I like to know all my options. So if I do align the tops, notice it moves it to the pressure top, and it's there. The other thing is they might not be evenly spaced across the screen, so you can make same size. You can make equal spaces horizontally or vertically. So if I do it horizontally, there's equal space in between here. Nice features. The other thing that people have trouble with is holding the control key down and selecting these that take time. You can just left drag a box and select all these at the same time. And then if you want humidity to be your alignment, you would keep it there, or you could just click on the one that you want. And once again, I like to do the right click and align, and I'm going to do align the tops. Okay, and make equal spaces horizontally again, and we're back to where we are. Okay, those features are pretty cool. There's a lot of alignment and spacing features. The other thing that a lot of people new to this type of interface find that when you saw me want to cut and paste an object before, I had no problem with that. I just cut and pasted it, dropped over top of it, and I drug it off. So if I want to do the same thing with numbers here, and I'm going to have to link these or they're going to go away, so I'm going to next available, and I'm just going to call it number 1. Okay, and I don't like the text color. I can fix that up now. And at this point, I'm just going to make it flat because I like that better. So this is what we see up on the screen. Maybe it's there. I like that, and I want to make 2 more of those. And maybe say I want to put them vertically. So I got everything set up, so I might as well do Control C. And then when I do I'll do a Control C. And when I go to copy it, you'll notice if I don't move anything, this little box comes up. And what we find out is that for things that change, and they're not text and not shapes and things, but for boxes that change and we have to connect them to something as far as associated with a memory location, you can't lay it right over top of the other one. So when you do your Control C, then you have to move that object just to vacate the area and do a Control V, and it'll put something the same exact shape with the same setup and properties in that same place. And that seems like a pain. It seems a little unnatural, but it ends up working well anyway. The only thing that you have to do is you have to come in here and change the association. So if this is the one you want with associated with MI0, that's okay. This one, you're going to have to remember to come in here, do the next available, and I'll say number 2 this time. So you have to remember to associate that, and on top of that, you have to remember to click the OK. So if I look at these, the properties of these two, that's MI0, this is MI1. The nice thing is they're both the exact same size. I didn't have to change the text color and do it. So if I'm here and I want to put a third box in here, I do the Control C. I move this down. And once I get it down out of the way, let me cancel that. Sorry, having a bad day here, right? Control C. I move this out of the way, and I do the Control V, and it puts it in there. Remember, go back and make your changes to the associated box. So if I leave this MI1 in there, both these are going to display the same number. So I'm going to do next available and do number 3. And hopefully that gets you up to speed with using this. Now, there's nothing useful here. I didn't put code behind here. I just wanted to show you how the HMI display went. The first part with the splash screen had some code. Not much, probably easy enough to remember, but I'll save that file somewhere so you have access to it in the future. Hopefully that gets you out of some binds or some frustrations when you're building an HMI interface.